Today I'm going to present a short lesson on typography. In graphic design, there are many tools available to you. It's fun to import pictures. We enjoy adding color. We want to use our drawing tools. But the real backbone and foundation of design is typography. Typography is defined as the setting of and printing with type. So even though you have lots of fun elements to bring in, if people can't read your message through your text, then the purpose of your design is probably not going to be fulfilled. So your typography helps to convey the message just like your voice inflection would when you're speaking with someone. So imagine that I look out my classroom window and I see someone about to jump off of a 5-story building, and I say, "Stop, don't jump." Or another example might be if I look to the back of the classroom, see the clock on the wall, and I say, "It's 3 o'clock!" My voice inflection in each of those instances does not match what I'm trying to communicate. So typography is just as important in our design work to help communicate the message of your piece. So let's take just a minute and learn a little bit about the anatomy of type. First of all, let's talk about this line right here across the bottom. That is called the baseline. The baseline is what the type sits on. It's an invisible line, and all of the lowercase letters would sit right upon that. Then right here you have a line that's called the X height. The X height is the height of a lowercase letter without ascenders or descenders, which brings us to those two vocabulary words. These right here are descenders, which means they descend below the baseline. Letters like the Y and P that you see here, also the letter Q, the letter G, they have descenders that fall below the baseline. Then you also have ascenders. In this instance, it's a capital letter, but it would also be letters like B and D that extend above the X height, this line right here. And then this final line across the top, that's called the cap height. And one final thing I would like to show you here is our serifs. We're going to talk quite a bit here about serif and sans serif typefaces, but this little thing right here is called a serif. And it's a small extending stroke that comes off of the end of a letter. And you will see in these examples it has a thick to thin transition. Those are called serifs. So, serif versus sans serif type. What exactly does that mean? Here's an example of a serif typeface. It should look similar to what we were looking at on the previous screen just a moment ago, but you will see these little extenders coming off of the letter. That's the serif. And you also know in this example, they have a thick to thin transition right here in this area. Next we have our sans serif typefaces, and these have no serifs extending off of the end of them. The end of the letter just ends without any of that thick to thin transitioning. And here we have a slab serif. So another serif, which means something is coming off of the end of the letter, but in this particular case it's shaped like a slab. You do not see the thick to thin transition like we did in the previous typeface. Two more typefaces I'd like to point out are our script and our decorative. Whoops, went just a little too fast there. Here's an example of a script typeface. Normally script typefaces look kind of like handwriting. Someone has written it by hand. Then you have decorative typefaces, and there are many of these available now. And it's certainly not a type that you would want to read large blocks of text in, but they're a lot of fun to use in headlines and in special things where you want to create maybe a particular mood to your piece. Those are called decorative typefaces. So here are our 5 different categories of typefaces that we were just talking about. First of all, we have our serif typeface. And here you see the little serif extending off the end of the letter. Next to that we have our sans serif. Absolutely nothing extending off of the end of these letters. Then we have slab serif. So there's a serif here, but it does not have the thick to thin transition. It's just like sitting on a slab. Then this example here is our script typeface, which means it looks like someone kind of hand wrote it. And finally, we have decorative typefaces, which there are myriads of different kinds of decorative typefaces. It's very important for you to be able to recognize the difference between a serif and a sans serif typeface. As we go through the semester, we will be learning that there are proper uses for each of these. So I hope that you will take a minute and make sure you can understand and recognize the difference between a serif and a sans serif typeface. As a final review, here are some of the vocabulary words we talked about in this lesson. We have our serifs, we have descenders and ascenders. So descenders come below the baseline, ascenders come above the baseline, above the x height, excuse me. We have our x height, which is the height of a lowercase letter without ascenders and descenders. Then a couple words that we didn't talk about earlier is right here. We have a stem, which is the vertical part of this H right here. We have a crossbar, which is the horizontal part of the H. We also have an awesome little vocabulary word called a tittle, which is the little dot that appears before the letter I and the letter J. Here you'll see the bowl of the letter Q and then this little tail of the letter Q. So I hope that as we go on through the semester, you will get a good grasp of these different vocabulary words, what they mean when we talk about typography. And I think you will be excited to learn all of the different uses for the types of type that we talked about today.